Hello students, again I welcome you all for my next video, and today in this video I'm going to explain the chapter Birth written by A.J. Cronin. Now before starting with the chapter, let's talk about the author A.J. Cronin. A.J. Cronin, born on 19 July 1896, Cardross, United Kingdom, and died on 6 January 1981, Montreux, Switzerland, and his full name was Archibald Joseph Cronin, and the movies and TV shows was his main creation. Citadel, the Stars Look Down Awards, National Book Awards for the fiction. Theme of the chapter: Dr. Andrew Mansion has just begun his medical practice in the small Welsh mining town of Bellingly. When he returns from the terrible evening with his girlfriend Christine, Joe Morgan approaches Dr. Andrew Mansion to help him in the delivery of his wife. Dr. Andrew Mansion has to put in much labor in the delivery as the mother requires much attention before she is revived. Further, the baby was not breathing at birth time. Using all his knowledge and intuition, Dr. Andrew Mansion makes more effort to revive the child, and after almost half an hour of frenetic efforts, he succeeds and comes away with a sense of achievement. Let's talk about the characters of the chapter Birth. The most important character is Dr. Andrew Mansion. He is a young medical graduate working in a small mining town. On the call of Joe Morgan, a miner, Dr. Andrew Mansion manages to help in a difficult birth and saves the baby's life due to his knowledge and efforts. Joe Morgan. He is the miner husband of Susan Morgan. He asks Dr. Andrew Mansion to help in his wife's delivery and reposes full faith in the doctor. Susan Morgan's mother. She is a tall, gray haired woman aged 70 who is concerned about her daughter's happiness. The midwife. She is pessimistic about the child's survival when he is found to be not breathing when born, but still dutifully assists Dr. Andrew Mansion in his work. Let's begin with a summary of the chapter. Joe Morgan was waiting for Dr. Andrew. Dr. Andrew had recently graduated from medical college. He was practicing as an assistant to Dr. Edward Page in a small Welsh mining town named Bellingly. One night, he was returning home when he found Joe Morgan waiting for him outside the doctor's home. He had been there for more than an hour. He looked relaxed to see the doctor. He informed that the doctor was needed at their home as his wife was expecting to deliver a baby after almost 20 years of marriage. Dr. Andrew asked him to wait for a few minutes. He went inside, got his medical bag, and set out for Joe Morgan's house. The case demanded all attention of Dr. Andrew. Joe Morgan stopped outside the house and requested Dr. Andrew to go inside alone. Through a narrow staircase, the doctor reached a small, clean, but scantily furnished room. He found two women beside the patient, and Susan Morgan's mother, a tall, gray haired woman of nearly 70, and an elderly midwife. Susan Morgan offered him a cup of tea, so Dr. Andrew sensed that she didn't want him to leave, as there would be some waiting period. Dr. Andrew was tired but still decided to stay. An hour later, Dr. Andrew went to check the patient and came down. The restless footsteps of Joe Morgan could be heard as he paced the street outside. Dr. Andrew's mind wandered. Dr. Andrew was so deep in his thought that the voice of the old lady, Susan Morgan's mother, surprised him. She informed him that her daughter didn't want him to give her chloroform if it would harm the baby. Dr. Andrew replied that it would do no harm. Just then he heard the midwife's voice. It was 3:30, and Dr. Andrew perceived that it was a time for him to start working on the delivery. The horrifying dilemma. After a harsh struggle for an hour, the child was born, a perfectly formed boy. Unfortunately, it was not breathing. A shiver of horror passed over Dr. Andrew. He had promised the family so much. He wanted to resuscitate the child, but the mother herself was in a very desperate state. He gave the child to the midwife and turned his attention to Susan Morgan, the mother, who was lying unconscious. Her pulse was slow and her strength was reducing. After a few minutes of continuous efforts, he stabilized her by giving her an injection. Then he asked for the child. The midwife had kept the child under the bed, presuming him to be dead. Dr. Andrew pulled out the child. His head was hanging loosely on the limbs seemed boneless. He concluded that the child was suffering from asphyxia pallida, an abnormal medical condition in a newly born baby. Dr. Andrew's efforts to save the child. Dr. Andrew recalled a case he had once seen in the Samaritan, a medical journal, and the treatment was that given. He asked the midwife to quickly get hot water and cold water in two bowls. He started plunging the child once into the icy water and then into the steaming bath alternatively. 15 minutes passed and nothing happened. Dr. Andrew was getting frustrated. He could see the unbelieving faces of the midwife and the old lady about the continued his efforts. The miracle. Dr. Andrew started drumming the child's chest with a rough towel and thumping his little chest, trying to get breath into that limp body. Then, as if by miracle, the child's chest began moving. Dr. Andrew felt weak and nervous at the sight of life springing under his hands. He redoubled his efforts, and the child was now breathing. Life came to his limbs, head became erect, and child's skin started turning pink, and suddenly the child cried. The midwife exclaimed with tears of happiness in her eyes, "Oh God, he has come alive." Dr. Andrew is relieved. After so much frantic efforts and success, Dr. Andrew felt weak and speechless. The old woman, Susan's mother, was still standing against the wall praying. Andrew went downstairs and told that he would fetch his bag later on. He found Joe Morgan still waiting with an anxious, eager face. Dr. Andrew gave the happy news that both the mother and the baby were all right. Andrew was really happy and exclaimed, "Oh God, I have done something real at last." He had achieved a feat in medical history. which would certainly brighten his future. So, now, students, here are a few of the highlights from the chapter Birth. Dr. Andrew was a young medical graduate who worked as an assistant to Dr. Edward Page in a small Welsh mining town, Bellonley. Dr. Andrew was returning home after a disappointing evening with his girlfriend Christine. Dr. Andrew found Joe Morgan anxious and scared, waiting for him. Joe Morgan informed him that the doctor was needed at their home as his wife was in labor before the expected date. This was to be their first child in a marriage of nearly 20 years. When they reached the house, Dr. Andrew realized that he would have to wait some time, so he decided to wait downstairs. Then Dr. Andrew is called upstairs and starts his work. After an hour's struggle, the child, a perfectly formed boy, was born lifeless. Dr. Andrew was horrified but continued his efforts first to save the mother, whose energy was reducing. After the mother was safe, his attention went to the child. He instinctively decides to revive a child. The Andrew quickly diagnoses the most probable causes of stillbirth, that is, asphyxia pallida. Dr. Andrew recalls a method he had once read about by which such a child had been successfully saved. Dr. Andrew tries alternate hot and cold water treatment to revive the child's breath. Dr. Andrew then rubbed the baby's body with a rough towel, crushing and releasing the chest. A medical miracle happens. The child finally breathes. Dr. Andrew redoubles his efforts till the child cries. After handing over the baby to the midwife, Dr. Andrew left the house. He realized that he had truly saved a life that might fulfilling the purpose of his profession. For the first time, Dr. Andrew felt that he had done something real, something worthwhile. So, students, hope the video is clear to you all. Thank you for watching my video. Be safe